This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum. Kick off your weekend at the Denver Art Museum's next Untitled Artist Takeover event on Friday, April 24th from 6 to 10 p.m. Get ready for a night of creativity and culture featuring poetry readings, crafting origami stars and printmaking, the electrifying rhythms of Japanese drumming, one-night-only art installations, and a nostalgic fashion show. The evening will be led by artists Leilani Durr and Soo-Yoon Juliet Lee and other contributing creatives. Untitled Artist Takeover is included in general admission and free for Denver Art Museum members. Reserve your tickets today at denverartmuseum.org. Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Producer Paul Caroli, hello.
Hey, what's up, Bree?
And Denver Post City Hall reporter Elliot Wensler, good to see you.
Hello, good to see you too, Bree.
So today on the show, we're talking about City Council's upcoming vote on scooters, the race for Diana DeGette's congressional seat, and more. Before we get into it, we are in the midst of the last couple days of our spring membership campaign, and we've seen so much support from all of you already. We appreciate all of you who've already signed up, those of you that have been members for years, but we're really in the final stretch here for our spring membership campaign. And something I wanted to share today is something I don't know if we've talked about a ton, which is when you join and you become a CityCast neighbor, you get this opportunity to tell us why you joined, why it matters to you. And we've gotten some really nice comments from our community that we've been creating here over this last drive. And I just wanted to share a couple. So first of all, Lisa S. says, I am moving to Denver from Boston. I have enjoyed listening to David Plotz for years on Political Gabfest, so I was aware of CityCast. I have been listening to the Denver show for the last few weeks in an effort to learn more about this city. Paul, you've been a Lisa in Denver. You've been a new person here. What do you think about? I just loved her. I just loved that she's like kind of trying to learn about us before she even gets here. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I moved here, I sure didn't have a CityCast Denver to tap into, a community of people, like-minded people wanting the best for the city, wanting to make it a better place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get it. I mean, that's kind of why we do this, is to make it easier and nicer and more fun to be a Denverite.
I was just laughing because I was like, Lisa's already one of us. We know our listeners love to know the ground level of what's happening in Denver, and she's not even here yet. And she's trying to figure out how to get in and learn more about our city and our, everything that happens here. There was another comment sort of on the other side of the spectrum that I also wanted to share. This is from Juliana G. She says, I've been a devoted listener from day one and a fierce lover of our city. I also strive to promote local businesses and events, and CityCast has helped me do this in even better ways. I'm a proud parent of DPS graduates, a west of I-25 Denverite, specifically in Marlee, founding member of the Levitt Pavilion, and a doting human mom to our family wiener pit, Everett. We love CityCast and want to support in the most meaningfully possible way possible. So we've got somebody who is a diehard Denverite already who's also listening. I thought this was just such a cool look at two different types of folks that are part of this wider Denver community.
You love to hear it. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, those notes were so nice. So, are you a Juliana? Are you a Lisa? Go to membership.citycast.fm/Denver today and become a CityCast Denver neighbor. Just $10 a month, $100 a year. You can support local journalism and be part of something bigger. Something else that we do that's really special is you don't just have to, you can reach out to us at any time, and you do. And so when you reach out and ask us questions or share your feedback, we in turn are able to share that with our listeners and continue to grow this community through the expertise that you share with us. So become a neighbor and, take it to the next level. Again, membership.citycast.fm/Denver and join us. Okay, let's get into it. We're talking about, so first of all, I should remind folks, the vote, the actual ballots don't go out until November, but the primaries in June are where a lot of the hot stuff is happening. So again, primary ballots June 30th. Elliot, you've already done some reporting on some really interesting races, and we want to take a deeper look at this one in particular, the Democratic primary for CD1, which is the congressional district that is basically most of Denver. 30-year incumbent Diana DeGette faces two challengers, Milot Kiros and Wanda James. And I think the big story so far that we've heard is that DeGette might actually be vulnerable here. But Elliot, you recently sat down with Milot and really looked into her campaign deeply. Why did you look into her, and what did you want to learn?
Yeah, so the reason that we decided to take a closer look at Milot, I mean, DeGette has held this seat for decades and has done it comfortably. This is the first time she's ever lost the county assembly. And she lost it to Milot. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of find out, who is this person? How is she able to pull that off? And also, what does it actually mean that she won the county assembly? We can get into this a little bit more, but that's actually just one step. And though it was surprising, I think there's a long way to go until June. And the primary here is going to be the most important race. A lot of your listeners probably already know this, but DeGette has defeated Republicans in the past with like 77% of the vote. So whoever wins the primary here is all but guaranteed to win the general. That's why we're going to pay a lot of attention here to who are these players in the primary. So Milot is a 28-year-old. She's a barista. She's a lawyer. She's a PhD student. She kind of has this really interesting mix of qualities. I thought this was interesting during my reporting. I found she was born the year that DeGette was sworn in.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's just a good representation of like what is going on in this race, really, folks' perspectives.
Definitely. And she's leaning into that as like, I am a newcomer to politics. And I think she's really playing that as to her advantage. And is kind of trying to paint DeGette as this establishment Democrat who's been there for decades. And Milot is really coming in and saying she wants to mix things up and offer sort of a totally fresh perspective to what it means to be a Democrat and what kind of Democrat Denver wants at this point.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk what kind of Democrat she is. Let's talk a little bit about what went down with her at the law firm that she was at, because I think that is really telling of what kind of Democrat she is. What did you learn?
Yeah. So first, I'll give a little bit of context, too, on just kind of like her politics before maybe I jump into the law firm. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah,
yes,
of course.
Please.
So she calls herself a democratic socialist. She's endorsed by the DSA. She sees herself really aligning with people like AOC, with Bernie Sanders. Like that's kind of where she sees herself fitting in. We can talk more about the differences in ads, but her ad is like has giant X's over Joe Biden's face, over Hillary Clinton's face, directly calls out Nancy Pelosi. Like this is kind of the way that she's trying to stand out in the race, is to say, again, I'm not an establishment Democrat. One of the reasons that she even got into politics is because she was fired from her law firm, which is one of the biggest law firms in the country. It is called Sidley Austin. And she was fired because after the October 7th attack by Hamas, her law firm put out a letter calling out anti-Semitism and just generally kind of commenting on what had happened. And she responded to that with kind of an open letter that she posted saying, it's good that they're calling out anti-Semitism, but it doesn't make sense to me that they're saying that the calling for the elimination of the Israeli state is anti-Semitism. So she basically was saying she doesn't believe that that's anti-Semitic. She was saying she does question the legitimacy of Israel. And her law firm, she says, came to her and basically were like, you need to apologize for this and take it down or else you're fired. And she said, I'm not going to do that. And so she was let go. And that was kind of when she came back to Denver, which is where she grew up, and decided to get more involved in politics.
Paul, what did you think about, I guess, just looking at how does that reflect her standing as a Democrat, taking this stepping out, like her using, this is a big part of her backstory, I guess. What do you, I don't know, how do you look at that? You've talked to Milot before, even before she was on the show, you were watching her.
Yeah, she was on the show in December. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I first got turned on to Milot by Lisa Calderon, mayoral candidate Lisa Calderon, who was the first person, I think it was like a campaign announcement party Lisa posted about on Facebook. And I was like, okay, if Lisa Calderon is interested in this person, this seems like the right time. Maybe there's something happening here. Because Lisa has her finger on the pulse. So yeah, that's what I was interested in, and I reached out to talk to Milat, and I met a person who was very principled. I mean, we talked a lot about Israel and Gaza, and I heard this story from her about why she left her law firm. And I mean, she was the person that we're now seeing on Instagram ads and TV ads all over the place, like very competent, seemingly coming out of nowhere. It is funny that she talks about herself as a barista, though, because of she got the barista job after leaving this like high-powered law firm. Like, she's a very well-educated, very highly competent, like, this is a person who could do a lot in the world. Like, she's took a job as a barista while she's running for Congress. The other thing I learned about Milat recently is she went by May. Like, Milat is how people talk about her, Milat Kiros. That's the name that's going to be on the ballot. But when in her PhD program, I've heard from someone who was in those rooms that her nickname was May. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but I know I have a lot of friends who's like don't have sort of like anglicized names, and sometimes they choose something that seems more easy for people that they think or that they feel is like easier for people to say. And then I've had a lot of friends sort of switch back to their given names as they've gotten older. But I mean, I don't want to speak for what her choices were, but I don't know. I do find how we identify ourselves to be an interesting indicator sometimes of how we want to show up in the world.
It certainly helps distinguish her from Diana DeGette.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a different kind of candidate. She's young. She's got a different background. She's got different values.
She also plans to use, if she were elected, she plans to use her position very differently than DeGette does. Like, DeGette holds...
What did she tell you about that?
Yeah, she was basically like, I would use my position. We talked a lot about like, what is the role that some of the like most progressive members of Congress have at this point, since there's not that many of them. Like, how can you actually use the power that you do have to try to accomplish things? Because what DeGette has going for her is like, she knows everybody in the building. She knows the policies really well. She knows the history. So I was kind of like, how would you be able to leverage your position? And she said she would use it to call out Democrats. It sounds like she would like really kind of use her public voice to call folks out, to try to pressure them to change their votes if she thinks that they're not aligned with what Democrats or what constituents actually want to have happen. She said that could be like civil protests, that could be threatening quorum. It kind of sounds like she would use all sorts of tactics to try to, possibly delay or pressure folks into changing their votes.
Yeah, I also think it's important to talk about, like, DeGette didn't just get elected for the last 30 years because this is a Democratic city and we like Democrats. I mean, she has done a lot. I think that part is sometimes
Do you have one? Do you have an example? Because I've been asking people that question too, and not many people can say, here's Diana DeGette's signature policy achievement.
I guess I feel like she's done work on reproductive justice in terms of like working on abortion issues and LGBTQ issues. Like, I know that she is seen as an ally in terms of human rights issues for LGBTQ people. I guess I can't point to a specific policy, but I'm thinking...
And that's a problem for her.
Yeah, maybe it is. It's like... I guess what I'm trying to say is I worry sometimes that this conversation becomes about age and that she's just too old and she's been there too long. And that pisses me off because that undermines, it's ageism. Sorry, it's just ageism. But yeah, if you can't point to a policy, then that maybe is the actual issue of someone being in office for a long time and not having something signature enough that I think that's where I would take that argument. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways voters evaluate candidates. People have biases in a million different ways, so they are going to be making decisions on however they want. I did look up what Diana DeGette's signature achievements are on her website. These are the things that she talks about. So that healthcare is a big thing for her. She has worked on expanding health insurance to low-income kids. She had a bill that she was touting. She also passed a bill to repeal Bush era, so like former President Bush era restrictions on stem cell research. On the reproductive justice issue. She is one of the leaders of the bill to codify the law that, Roe v. Wade, the precedent that Roe v. Wade established, but was overturned. So those are the things that she talks about, those kinds of things.
And I do just want to reiterate how important that position is, especially now in current day and age with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and how Colorado has become. I mean, Colorado has long been a place for folks outside of the state to access reproductive health care, particularly abortions. But it does, to me, DeGette's works, that's where I think she could speak to something that is more tangible for folks, is like, hey, I have been working on this aspect for a long time, and it's been under threat in the last 5 years more than it maybe has felt for most of my lifetime.
This is also kind of more of an aspirational thing for her, but she also is a supporter of Medicare for all, which is something that Milat also talks about, which I think is interesting. Like, they both kind of say that that's a primary focus for them. And interestingly, I don't know if either of you were at the speech from AOC and Bernie when they came through Denver.
Yes.
But she actually called out DeGette in that speech and said, thank you, Denver, for electing her,
yes.
and talked about how she supports Medicare for all. So I kind of thought that is, when I realized that in my reporting, I thought that's sort of an interesting challenge for Milat now to I'm not sure if AOC would plan to endorse anyone in the race or come out, but like, having said that, it's sort of it introduces an interesting wrinkle.
Hi, Olivia.
Hey, Brie, what's up?
Well, I just want to talk to you about this cool new thing that we have that's just for CityCast Denver neighbors. We have something really exciting to share with you because we know you love Denver as much as we love Denver, but the other thing you love about Denver, which I know you do, is gossip. There's a lot of stuff that we realized we were leaving on the cutting room floor that was actually really fun and things we wanted to share with that we thought our audience might like, but it doesn't always fit into our regular programming.
So if you want to hear that and join the little chat, we've got a special new thing for neighbors only, where we are going to be rolling out a bonus segment at least once a week for neighbors only, where you get a special segment of us talking about something. But that's only one of the benefits you get from joining our membership program. Of course, it shows the kindness of your heart and supporting local journalism and our small team. We see each of your names and we get a little flutter in our hearts each time we see it. But you also get ad-free listening, invites to our member-only events, and then you're also getting a weekly preview of all the best events happening throughout the metro, sent right to your inbox every Monday.
So again, you can join us at membership.citycast.fm for just $10 a month. You get that extra content, or $100 a year if you want to save a little cash and pay for the whole year up front. And it's just for you if you become a member.
I learned something about DeGette I'd like to share. This is to the question of is she vulnerable? Is she afraid of these challengers? DeGette, we haven't talked about Wanda James at all, but we should. I learned recently that after Milat Kiros's surprise showing at the county assembly, when she won, I think 66% of the delegates, I learned recently that after Milat Kiros's surprise showing at the county assembly, when she won, I think 66% of the delegates, that there has been a little bit of a shakeup in the staffing of the DeGette campaign. I think not everybody is working the same jobs that they had before, is what I heard.
Wow.
So she is taking this message to heart, I guess, is what I would take from that rumor. Something has alerted her that there's a real challenger this time, or potentially two.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense.
I want to make sure before we get too far into this that we do a little level set also, though.
Sure.
Because as you said, Milat did win, 60% of the assembly. However, that was 646 votes. There are 416,000 voters who are going to vote in this primary. So that is why I think a lot of folks who are really ingrained in politics are kind of I don't know if this is actually going to be that like a lot of people criticize the assembly process as not being particularly representative of who actually votes in these. And Milat, when I spoke to her, she was like, no, I totally agree. I wasn't even going to go through the assembly process because I don't think that it's particularly fair or representative. And then at the last minute, she kind of decided to. So she agrees with that, but still is kind of obviously pointing to it as it's never happened before. And, politics are kind of crazy right now.
Politics are weird.
Politics are weird. It's not impossible, but it's just, I think, important to show those numbers.
Yeah.
Huge grain of salt.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of Denverites have voted for Diana DeGette before many times. They're going to be used to it. They're going to be comfortable doing it come June. But the path for Milat to win, like building momentum, creating a narrative around this surprise showing at Assembly really, really helped her. I mean, you can. I mean, we've talked about these prediction markets on the podcast before and all the issues with them. But if you look at the one for the District 1 Democratic nominee, you can see that Quiros has really closed the gap. I mean, the people who are betting on this market, they think that she has a chance. She's currently sitting at 33% to DeGette's 63%, with James lagging at a 5.5% chance.
Should we jump into that then? Because we have not talked about Wanda James yet, who is the third candidate in this primary. Paul, what do we know about Wanda James?
Wanda James, very impressive person. She's been around Democratic politics for a long time. She worked on Obama's presidential campaign leading up to the 2008 election here in Colorado. She managed a campaign for Jared Polis, a congressional race. She also holds a very interesting distinction as being one of the first Black dispensary owners in the country with her husband. That's the Simply Pure dispensary. So she is both like involved in politics and respected in politics and in the local business community. Most recently, she was elected to represent Denver as a CU regent in 2022. But then since then, she was censured by the rest of the board over the way that she handled some criticism she had of some public health messaging that she thought was racist. We'll put some links into that story. There's been some great reporting on that. I don't think we should go too far into it, but that's a way that a lot of people know her now. I think the most interesting thing about Wanda James right now is her endorsements. If you look at the endorsements page on her website, it is really impressive. Like, these are some of the most distinguished, particularly Black leaders of our community. Former Mayor Wellington Webb and his wife Wilma Webb, former Denver Post editor Greg Moore, former State Rep Leslie Herod, State Rep Jennifer Bacon. And then there's interesting people like Ken Salazar, former senator, just endorsed her. And one name that stuck out to me, and I need to follow up on, former Culinary Creative Group CEO Juan Padro endorses Wanda James.
Talk about a controversial figure in the restaurant world. I don't know how that translates to an endorsement of a political candidate, but that is interesting. But it is part of this bigger picture you're painting, though, of like the types of folks that are backing Wanda, which I have to be honest with you, I haven't gotten any Wanda ads or anything in my Instagram, but I've certainly gotten a lot and DeGette.
Well, her fundraising is lagging behind Quiros. Quiros especially has picked up. We got some new numbers last week, but Quiros' fundraising, she raised just shy of $175,000 the first quarter of 2026. And James raised $72,000 in that same quarter. DeGette, meanwhile, has surpassed both of them and raised over $260,000 in the first quarter and has much more money on hand. So Quiros is picking up. James is not so much. And DeGette still looks strong when it comes to the money.
Yeah, this is interesting race. Yes, Elliot.
I was going to say one more thing I think we have to mention here is the fact that having three candidates in this primary is actually possibly likely beneficial to DeGette.
100%.
So,
good point.
Splitting her opponents into two different groups, I think a lot of folks are going to say, well, is that going to have the spoiler effect? Is that going to mean that, DeGette is more likely to hold on to her position? And so I think that's always kind of an interesting question here. And there was a bit there. Part of the reason that I didn't write about Wanda James in that initial story was because she hadn't been put on the ballot yet. Like she was the final person to make it on the ballot through that petition process. And that's, the Secretary of State's office, I think, released a bunch at once rather than like in a rolling basis.
As they came in. Yeah.
But so I don't know. I was kind of curious, like if she somehow didn't make the ballot, like this might be a different race if it's just between two people. But now that there's three, it changes the dynamic.
Well, I think that's exactly what political insiders have been waiting for and watching is now that we know that James is on the ballot for sure, are there backroom negotiations happening between the James campaign and the Kiros campaign about do we really want to take DeGette down? Or do we really care most about our candidate being the person? So will someone drop out? Will the deal get struck? That's something to watch in the next few weeks.
Well, as always, we'll be watching this race. And I do just want to shout out, I have a question for our listeners. We here at CityCast Denver are working on our election coverage for the next couple of months and trying to strategize and figure out what do we want to cover? How do we want to cover this? We know the primary is important. We know you all care a ton about the November ballot. But if there's something that you're watching or you're interested or you want to know more about a particular race or a candidate, let us know. 720-500-5418. Let us know what you're looking for. Let us know what you're watching out for. Let us know what you have questions about because we have questions too. And we want to try to cover this as best as possible. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are switching to a city council conversation about scooters. We're back. We're talking scooters. We have been this last 5 months, there's been sort of these frantic negotiations around who is going to be the provider of the micromobility option of scooters and e-bikes and things like that. It has been Lime and Bird up until now, but City Council is finally set to vote this coming Monday on a contract that Mayor Johnston's Department of Transportation and Infrastructure has reached with a new to Denver micromobility company called, is it VIO?
Yes.
VIO.
So it's crunch time because also at the same time, Lime and Bird's contracts are set to be up mid-May. Elliot, this is your beat. Pretty simple question. Do you think that this new contract is going to sail through? Is City Council going to sign off on this new provider?
Oh, man, I wish that was a simple question. Once upon a time, it felt like a simple question, but I think my days of predicting how City Council is going to vote are a bit behind me because the City Council has been pretty unpredictable, honestly. I have to let you guys in a little bit on the behind the scenes stuff, I have had to write 2 versions of stories multiple times. And then at the last minute, chosen the one that I didn't think was going to happen because that's just how unpredictable up until literally the moment that people are voting in some cases. This one, I don't...
Is that just like individual council members who are not making up their minds or why is that happening, do you think?
Why is it so hard to predict?
Well, yeah, because I know that you're talking to these people every day.
Yeah.
So you know kind of where people are leaning, and there's only 13 of them. So in most cases, you can count up where the votes are going to lie.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm wondering about is the uncertainty because people haven't made up their minds or because there's something else going on.
I think that there's enough council members that are willing to change their minds on certain things that it's just hard to really get an accurate vote count. There's not just a really obvious contingency of these people always vote this way, these people always vote this way. There is and I've talked to a lot of city insiders about this, that it's even folks within the mayor's office, even folks who work as city council aides, it's hard for them to tell how someone is going to go because it just happens to be kind of the makeup of these council members that, they change their minds and they don't necessarily fit into, also local issues are so tricky in that they're not very clearly the liberal decision or the conservative decision. Sometimes they kind of fall into that, but the more local they are, the more it's not really about left or right. It's kind of about where their values are falling for this particular thing and what their constituents and what their neighborhoods are saying. So yeah, I mean,
there's no party boss emailing you to say, hey, we actually expect you to vote yes on this bill.
Right.
And you don't even need to read it or care about it or think about it.
Right. Also,
this is just the way the party's going.
Yeah. I think they also just don't always want to say how they're going to vote because it sort of locks them in. And, even for folks who may have watched the vote related to the new Axon camera system, Council President Amanda Sandoval, when she was the last person to give comments, and she was like, I am aware that I am going to be the person to make this pass or fail. And I am not going to say right now how I'm going to vote. I'm going to wait until I say yes or no for you guys to find out, which I thought was it was just very dramatic in the moment. And as I had these two versions of the story, and I was like, I don't know what's about to happen. And obviously it ended up passing, but there was drama up to the last minute.
I also find city council really interesting. You kind of touched on this, Elliot, because it is so specific to neighborhoods and constituencies, right? Like how the majority of folks feel, I don't know, in Wash Park versus where I live in Barnum can be very different based on experiences with services like Lime and Bird or where you use them. And, the city council races are always interesting when we're at the election level because it can be a couple hundred votes that change things for, that pick the person that represents your neighborhood. So that's what I kind of love about watching city council too, is again, it's not necessarily along party lines. It's along neighborhood lines sometimes.
Absolutely. And different parts of the city have different amounts of infrastructure for bike lanes. So that's going to make people feel differently about do I feel safe riding a scooter through this area? Or do I not really like scooters because I don't feel like I can ride them safely in my area? There's a lot of things that go into it. So to answer your, what you said was hopefully a simple question. I think, I don't want to say for sure, but in the last committee meeting that they had, it sounded like there were still some concerns, but I wasn't hearing the same level of, sure, I'm going to let this through committee, but I'm about to vote it down on, when it comes before the full council. I didn't hear quite the same level of concern that I had heard in the past, but that's only a portion of the council members. So I don't know. I don't know what is going to happen on Monday.
I have one thing that makes me think it will pass, which is I checked in with the folks from Lime, one of the scooter companies that currently has the contract that's expiring in May. They had been lobbying. Basically, they put in one of their proposal when Dottie put out their RFP last year. They were not selected, and they've pretty much been lobbying all the way through to try to get the contract back or get some compensation for the work that they put in, especially to the equity access program was the big thing that they've been talking about all year. The thing that they think is going to be lost in the transfer, or they're worried about people losing access who they worked so hard to get signed up. And so I got a email from Jacob Tugendry, who we had on the show last year. I think he's the head of government relations for Lime, or like a senior head of government relations. And the quote from the press release is, "All of us at Lime remain saddened that our service in Denver will come to an end in May, but we're still so incredibly proud of the program that we've built here." So they're talking about it like it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, I think if I had to bet at this point, I don't think that the council would want to just fully lose all scooters. And that's what would happen if this was voted down. So that's
because
a good
the
point,
other
Paul.
contracts are expiring.
Right. So they would have to scramble to extend them. And the city has repeatedly said, we already went through an RFP. We picked a new provider. We're not going to just extend these. Because there was a point where it was like, maybe we should have more overlap with VO and Lime and Bird. And ultimately the city was like, we're not going to do that. And I think Lime has sort of said, okay.
I think secretly what's being missed here is just to pull back a little bit, this is a huge win for the city. This is a narrative that has not really been teased out of this whole scooter battle, who's going to get the contract thing. But the city and Dottie have played these scooter companies against each other and secured some really big improvements to this micro-mobility program for participants. Number one, it's going to be a lot cheaper. VO is charging Denver residents 25 cents per minute on top of the $1 unlocking fee that has always been the case. That is down from 44 cents per minute that Bird and Lime charged. And non-residents for VO will pay a little bit more, 39 cents a minute, but 25 cents per minute is a huge discount. And that's not all. The one number that you should know if you'd hear any of them in the whole show is VU has agreed to pay the city $250 per scooter per year. So the city has, and they put that in the RFP. Dottie knew that they wanted to get paid, and they knew that the scooter companies were competitive enough with each other that they would give it up. I mean, we don't know what the other companies offered. The folks from Lime didn't tell me what their offer was, but this micromobility program has turned into a revenue generator for the city. $2.25 million per year. If VO gets to have a fleet of 9,000 vehicles like they want, which would be a much bigger fleet than they've ever managed anywhere in the country, but that's what they want. $2.2 million a year. That's kind of huge.
Absolutely, especially with a city that's having a lot of budget problems right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a state that's having budget problems too.
Right.
I think too, but to me, it really remains to be seen how the consumer interacts with it. Is it a better service? Are the scooters better? Is the app accessible? Like the things that make it easier for folks to even utilize the service will, I think, be the real tell. But we won't know that until this new contract is potentially signed.
That's a good point, because the interface does make such a difference in how easy it is to use. I do think that one thing that listeners may already know that's really interesting is that the different types of scooters that are going to be offered for the first time ever. So there's going to be trikes, cargo bikes, seated scooters, two-person scooters, which is like very exciting for anyone who has seen two people loading onto which we all have seen, and you're all just like, oh my gosh, please,
I'm just
don't
terrified,
crash in front of me.
especially for children on those. Like, I have so much empathy for parents that are utilizing these to get around, understandably, but like if we can make it safer for everybody and more accessible,
right?
Sounds like more.
And
options.
I think there's going to be like thicker tires so that it's like not every time you go over a bump, you don't feel like you're about to like fly through the air. So the actual scooters themselves, I think, are going to be really interesting to see how much people like them and if people actually use, the other options,
the different
besides
options.
Just the like classic scooter.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching this. You will be watching this, Elliot, because this vote happens this coming Monday, right, at City Council?
Yes.
So
yeah,
we will keep folks updated. Elliot, Paul, thank you so much. This was really interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
See you next time, Bree. Hey, before we go, one more mention of our membership program. It's our spring membership drive, and we really, really need your support. So if you care about the show, if you care about Denver, sign up now at membership.citycast.fm.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our morning newsletter at denver.citycast.fm. And hey, a huge thank you to our new neighbors, Peter Yu, Lisa G, and Susan F., who just joined our membership program. Again, you can support this show right now and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.